All right, here we go. Overdrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan on a beautiful Tuesday here in Toronto. Golf weather. Probably the end of the road, really. Beautiful day outside today here in Toronto. And people reacting to the Leafs last night. The Monday Nighter. The Raptors are in action tonight. You got baseball cooking. It's a great time of year.
I saw a guy on the Jumbotron last night.
Yeah, so did I. He got a big pop. That was a big pop.
Did he ever? Holy smokes. I don't know where you guys were sitting, but I was just I think I was in 122 or something in the corner, just kind of hiding. And you should have heard the guy behind me just like screaming, "Oh, dog!" Like, it was unbelievable. That's why I snapped a picture of it. I was like, it's pretty. I had a little bit of goosebumps, I'll be honest. It was pretty cool.
So did I. I just got down there, which is always an awkward scene. I'm in the alumni box without the alumni that invited me. So I'm walking in there, and I'm like, no,
You're
our
tight
guy
with
Tyler.
You're Tyler's guy.
He's such a good guy. I saw JL on the YN, too. JL was there, right? On the YN.
JL is a legend at security.
Yes, she is, and it was great to have a little stop and chat with her as well, and Tyler. So I do feel it's kind of like a scene out of the Goodfellas, right? Like when he's walking through the kitchen, I'm going in there, I'm shaking hands. How's everyone doing? Meanwhile, I have no right to be there unless I'm there with an alumni like the O-Dog.
And
but
I will say you pulled a double dip in the buffet. I did not see that one off the top turnbuckle. This guy fired up a plate. He said the plates were too small. That was his one complaint. And then he loads up some chicken mash and Brussels sprouts. Mm-hmm. And I'm not kidding you, Noodles. He dummied that. And then I thought he was going to the bathroom. And he loaded up chicken fingies right after.
Wow.
It was amazing.
It was, with another scoop of the mash, because the mashed potatoes were so good, so succulent last night. Just a phenomenal spread. It always is. The hospitality, it's the best hospitality you're going to find.
You can't beat the gig. You can't beat it. I'm so thankful. We got to sip aside Mark Bell, who's an awesome guy, former Leaf player. We had laughs. We told hockey stories. It's an incredible night. But Noodles, I think you could agree, for a Monday night, and we always talk about the environment down there, the atmosphere, I think the roof was ready to blow off the top of that place. It was? Yeah, because Bedard was in town, and I think every single kind of, I'm not going to say cool person, but every kind of cool dude in the city was in that building last night. It was like they had to see this guy play, and they were waiting something to happen, and nothing did.
Well, you know what, though? I don't think he disappointed. I thought there were some nice performances last night. Like, Bedard, he's the real deal. Like, he had some moves last night, some plays. I don't know how you guys felt, where it's like he had some really good shots, some really good looks. And Joseph Wall made a couple good saves on him. Like that,
Oh, Noodles, I'm not disagreeing that he delivered. Like, he was pretty good. I'm talking on the Leaf side. They look like, and I'm not going to, they seem to start slow every year, and they're just a little bit sloppy. But one word that a coach would hate, they just look a little disorganized. And they also look like a couple of their guys maybe could have used one or two more exhibition games. They just look a little bit like, without a couple Auston Matthews hat tricks, and I'm not going to turn back the clock and say they didn't deserve the first two wins, but without the Nylander play and the Matthews hat tricks, they could be Cobb and 3. So they're just a little bit sloppy right now.
Right, and it's not been tough competition. It's a similar story to what we've seen the last couple of years. That said, they got 4 points in the bank. Montreal's not a very good team. Minnesota's a good team. They're not a great team. They're not a cup contending team, but they're a good team. And, Chicago, I think we all expect to be one of the, 5 or 7 worst teams in the league as well. They're turning things over. And this happens every year, last night in particular, where they have a game at home against an inferior competition and they play down to that competition, or they come out sleepy. And that's what happened last night. And I'll give credit to the goaltender for Chicago. I thought he was outstanding last night.
He made some huge saves.
He made some great stuff, in tight in particular, to your point, Noodles. And as the game got going, Matthews had 18 shot attempts last night, which is pretty incredible. And I thought Nylander was cooking. And that's been the story of the first 3 games. It feels like the whole roster's looking at Matthews and looking at Nylander and asking them to ignite. And I thought they had chances to do that. Nylander set up Tavares beautifully on Tavares' goal. I thought Willie had a couple of other really grade A chances last night. It's the rest of the roster that you're kind of waiting to really contribute and push things over the top. And I think that's what we've seen through 3 games, is those 2 guys have been so good that they've carried them, really. And as a result, they're 2-1 as opposed to maybe 1-2 or maybe even 0-3 in a different scenario.
So my takeaways last night, I thought William Nylander might have been the best player on the ice. I thought he was dancing again, looked really dangerous.
He was great
every
last
time.
night.
So he looked great. Matthews was all over it. He had last night was bad puck luck for him. We had a wide open net on the back door, puck popped off his stick. Soderblom made good save at the left pad in tight as Nylander fed it down and Marner fed it down. He had the redirect in front that hit the crossbar. He was around it. It just didn't go in for him. I don't worry about him. I think this is where, and you know what? We had this conversation yesterday about the Reeves and the numbers and expected goal. The bottom of the roster is not giving them anything dangerous. That's where I circle a guy like Max Domi. I think, he needs more. I think they expect more. I think Matthew Nyes has looked good at times, but I think they expect more. So, when you come back to it, that's where you're saying either it's more training camp time or they just looked off a little bit at their timing. Because if it's not Matthews or Nylander or Tavares and Marner to, a little lesser extent right now.
Ain't much happening
Who
after
you getting it from? Where's and so I think that's where people are talking about. Well, Reeves gives you nothing, and that fourth line's giving you. Minton looks, like it is right now.
He's just kind of there. He had that one shift where he fanned on 2 opportunities that were grade A, and like right in front of him, and it was the second period, I believe, and he couldn't close. And he is not. I don't think he's been a detriment on the ice. I don't think you've looked at him and he's like, man, he's getting caved in, he's getting overwhelmed. Right. But he's he's 19 and he's game 3 and he's not Connor Bedard, right? Like he's not the equivalent of what you would expect out of a kid of that caliber. And I think what we're going to see here, and again, last night, Keefe, I think, hit the nail on the head. The first period, they played horribly, and then they were chasing the game after that. They give up 2 really awful breakdowns defensively in and around the neutral zone in their own blue line, leading to a Perry breakaway, basically a Johnson breakaway. And the game's over at that point because you're chasing it. And the way the Blackhawks goaltender was playing last night, it didn't look like he was going to be beat. So credit to Chicago. They came in and did what they were supposed to. Their veterans carried them when need be last night, and they pick up 2 points and they move on with their season. But we've seen the story before with the Leafs. Early in the year, takes them a while to get organized. For whatever reason, it's incredibly frustrating, but it has been their reality. And a reality of the Kyle Dubas era that did not change simply because Dubas left and Trey Living came in is you're still going to invest a lot of money in 3 or 4 players, maybe 5 if you include Riley, and you've got to find ways to fill the holes in terms of depth, in terms of defense, and that's what Trey Living's going to work with. And that's not changing an opinion on what they are and how they're going to play out the regular season. This is stuff I think most of Leaf fans and media were discussing coming into the season. What's this defense core going to look like? Jake McCabe has not had a good start. Start. Timothy Liljegren, I was listening to Frankie and the Tapman and Ralphie on the way home last night. Thought Frankie brought up a really good question, which I think in a way was almost issued as a statement. Like, is he plateaued as a third-pairing guy? Is that what he is now? Like, is he established in the NHL, Timothy Liljegren, but that's it? 6th defenseman, sheltered minutes, not going to do much more, or does he still have more that he can bring where he can move up the lineup?
At this point, I would say he is what he is right now.
I agree with you. I think so, too. I think that's likely the case when it comes to what Liljegren is at this point. But you look at it, Brody's up at the end of the year, Klingberg's up at the end of the year, Liljegren's up at the end of the year. Giordano's up at the end of the there's a lot of potential movement in the next 18 to 24 months that could change the way this team looks. But
what is
now,
the approach, though,
have.
Hayes? What is the approach, though? Is the approach which, Noodles, you would know the kind of X's and O's and management is you're not going to change 4D in a season.
No.
So is it just this is what we got this year and let's see how it plays out? I just hate that idea, Hayes.
Well, let me chime on that. I'm going to point to one team, and acquiring one player slotted other players properly. Look at the acquisition of Ekholm in Edmonton. And all of a sudden, minutes come off a Nurse. All of a sudden, Bouchard looks like a player. Like, it slots and pushes guys around a little bit. Like, that's where Toronto might need. And again, I don't know, like I was trying to go through it. Like Klingberg, I don't think has been a problem, but I think we all know just kind of what he is. I think
he needs help, though, Noodles. I think McCabe is supposed to help him, and McCabe thinks he's the offensive dynamo at this point, and it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're right.
He needs to settle down, McCabe. Big
settle down.
The offensive
he does.
dynamo.
He's pinching.
Oh, he's running all over the place.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm saying is that you're not going to, to your point, you're not going to change 4 guys. But what you might do is change one who has that trickle-down effect and resettles 3 others. And if you're married to Riley and Brody, then it's McCabe pushes down and you slide in player X. I don't know whether it's Bowen Byram or Girardi or somebody somebody, and I don't know if Colorado, I'm just throwing out names. Please don't, say I'm
player X, a guy who can move up the lineup, yes.
But somebody who's an impact player.
Sure.
Because Ekholm is an impact player, and Edmonton looked a lot different on defense. By plugging one guy in, it stabilized everybody else. And I think that's where Toronto was probably going to head. If you're looking at the defensive core going, we need an upgrade, it's going to start with one impact player.
Yes, I agree with you. Now, you're not getting that a week into the season, obviously. I mean, that was something that either was going to be addressed in the offseason or leading up to the trade deadline. Who knows who would be available league-wide come that point. But I think what was established during the Dubas era, which will continue during the Trey Living era, is this team has the potential to look very different the day after the trade deadline.
Yes.
Right? And but until you get there, you need to settle down a little bit defensively. They've given up 13 goals in 3 games. Maybe a little bit better goaltending at times, more so from Samsonov than Wall. I thought Wall played well last night. Obviously, you'd love to get a stop on a breakaway, but 2 clear-cut breakaways. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
Even if he stops 1, you're still losing the game.
Do you think Wall plays Thursday?
I would go back to Samsonov personally.
I don't. I think
that's
Samsonov
a big game
plays
down in Florida. That's the home opener for the Panthers. That's going to be a pretty wild environment. Pretty wild.
Well, for Florida, as you say.
Yes, putting it into perspective for Florida.
I will say this Corey Perry can hit a nerve, boy.
Sure can, man. Man, does he have a chip on his shoulder? He's been playing like that his whole career.
Dude, as soon as he scored, Noodles, Hayes goes, Corey Perry again in this building.
This guy just, it is something else, and I don't know who he was pointing at or whatever, but it's just, he's been doing it his whole career. He's won a Hart. He's done it all. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Like, he's an unbelievable. It just is that play. I don't know who made that pass. That was a ridiculous pass. Like the rocket. Who was that on Johnson's goal or was that on Perry's?
Perry's.
That was Perry's when he got it through. Somehow he got it through Marner, and I think it was Giordano who was coming off a change.
That was a 3-zone saucer rocket.
And then Perry just. He picks the low corner, which is such a grizzled vet, like YMCA beer league goal. You know what I mean? Like, he's not dangling. He's like, I'm just going to tuck this thing just above your stick, and it's going in, and you won't even know what's coming. And it was exactly what you would expect. And he was chirping with Reeves last night. He's been doing that his whole career. Now, obviously, he's not the same caliber. There was a time when he scored 50 and was winning a Hart and was playing 22, 23 minutes a night. But you talk about a player that has transitioned as his career has gone on into just a perfect role.
Hayes, he was struggling to get a gig in the COVID lockout or the COVID bubble, and he just catches on with Montreal, and that was 4 years ago.
Yep, that's right. They went to Cups in Montreal, Dallas, and then Tampa. Wasn't he in the Cup final like 4 years in a row? I think he was.
4 years. Yeah, it was ridiculous, but didn't win it, though. That was the thing. He was always on the other side.
That's right.
That sucks for him. But that was, I don't know. What else did you guys take away from that game? Because this Bedard kid, I keep telling you, once he figures it out, like the spacing and the timing, he had some good looks. I think he had 5 quality chances that on the analytics.
And I thought on the power play in particular, you can tell everything's going through him. Like that. That's the sign of respect. Even at 18 years old, is you've got some pretty long-standing, like veteran players that have won awards. Like Taylor Hall's won a Hart, Corey Perry's won a Hart, and they're crossing the blue line saying, "Where's 98? Like how can we get the puck on this kid's stick, and he will create space and create opportunity." And he didn't score last night, didn't get on the game sheet last night, but he definitely had moments where you realize what he's about, and that's going to continue, right? He's going to score in every building he plays. When he comes back next year and for the next decade plus, the guy is going to be a ticket seller, and he's going to create a ton of buzz. And what I found interesting was, and I'm not surprised because it's an Original Six team, and in a city like Toronto, almost every team is represented. You go down to a game, almost every team is represented. There were a number of Bedard jerseys that I saw in the stands, which is pretty incredible for an opposing team coming into Toronto. And you mentioned off the top, like the building I thought was waiting to pop. What I found interesting was it was a packed house. Like it was a packed house, which they always
every
sell.
Seat, dude.
They always sell. They sell out, but not everyone shows up. Everyone showed up last night. And what I found also interesting was once it turned 4-1, the Platinum started pouring out. No one was leaving the upper bowl. Like, nobody left. And I think that was a testament to, the Leafs could do anything, at this point. They could do anything. I guess it was 3-1 at this point. They're more than capable of storming back like they did against Montreal opening night. And I also I paid for the tickets. I'm here. If this Bedard kid gets loose, I kind of want to see him do something still.
Yeah.
So I credit to people that, stuck around in the greens and the grays or the purples, whatever it is now, because they weren't leaving. On a Monday night early in the season, they were sticking around.
Well, when's the last time you saw 2 empty netters two goals get called back? And like that other one.
How stupid is that? How stupid is it with 6 seconds left? We're going to review. We're going to pull. It's like, come on, guys. Can we all leave?
I will admit, I could have been on the Gardner at that time.
I was walking. I was well on my way.
I was still in my seat, guys, and that would have been.
Bonesy was like, I don't know if this game's going to ever end.
Well, that was Matthews' goal.
That's the crazy thing is it went off him, Noodles. That would have been 7. Like, there's a part of me that was like, just give it to him so he can bank his 7th, and then he's well on his way to some crazy stat.
Yeah, doesn't the league, like, as a whole say, you know what? Goal, like, screw it. We're just not looking at that offside.
We're just going to count this one. Because that one came from the league. Which is pretty wild.
It did, but it just, I feel like I just thought it was Chicago trying to get back at Toronto hey, you called our empty netter back, like, we're going to do this to you type of thing. And I thought it was gamesmanship, right to the end. But I
thought so too. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't hear on the way home again. I was listening to the post game. I think the Tapman brought that up, that the Leafs challenged, I think it was the Hull empty netter.
Yeah, it was.
But it was the league that called in to challenge the next one. And it's like, what's with the inconsistency? Because they were both under 2 minutes. They probably both should have been flagged. But anyway, listen, the Leafs end up losing, and now they hit the road. They got a 5-game roadie. It's not going to be an easy one. They're in Florida. They're in Tampa. They go through Washington, Nashville. So, there's some big games coming up here. They're going to have to get these new players kind of into the game, the Bertuzzis, the Max Domis for sure. Settle down their defensive play. You can't be giving up, 13 goals over the course of every 3-game span. You're just, it's not going to work. But they're not alone. The whole league is doing this. There's breakdowns in every game all across the league. And I would expect
as
that
the coaching staff,
continues.
the coaching staff would be like when it happens out in Edmonton and then it happens in Toronto again, it's like, are we talking about this again? I know it's fresh. We're 3 games in, but it's like, management of the puck and being careless. It's like, is that just, I don't know. That's just what you do, I guess. It's early. I get it, but it's just like, I don't know.
Again, I keep referencing the post game. It's like I'm stealing their material here. But I thought Frankie, again, brought up a good example that you guys have brought up before. You've mentioned playing in San Jose. a lot throughout your career. And everyone in the room was like, the first 10, this place, the roof is going to be going, popping off. You got to survive. And it's like, why can't that be the Leafs? Like, why isn't Chicago pulling into Toronto saying, we got to survive 10 minutes because these guys are going to be going nuts on home
I know,
ice.
But that's the thing, Hayes.
It's the opposite.
When you talk about San Jose, and it's no disrespect to the people that pay all the money to go to the games, but San Jose, it was just like vibrating, and people were really loud, and it was just like everything was so fast, and then they seemed to score in the first 5 minutes, and everyone literally went bananas.
Yeah.
I don't know if a Toronto Maple Leaf crowd, as much as they love I don't know if they go bananas and get that place rocking like that.
No.
You know what I mean?
I think you're right. It's not the chicken or the egg. It's always been the team to supply that. But the team can do that if they come out flying.
You're right.
And score too quick, then that place will be alive. You know, and that's that's their reality. You can't rely on the place going crazy for the home team to come alive. But you know, that Sharks team was a really good team. This Leaf team is a really good team. Like, there's no reason why the Leafs on home ice are not ready to go last night and rocking when you consider Chicago's been on the road for a week. You know, and Chicago played their 4th game last night. The Leafs just played their 3rd. 4 games in 4 different cities. The Leafs played 3 at Scotiabank. And the Leafs were asleep in the first period.
Yeah.
That's hard to understand. It's definitely frustrating. I'm sure it is if you're Sheldon Keefe and others around the team.
Well, they waded into the game. That's really what it is. And sometimes you're looking at the competition, you're looking at the whiteboard going, okay, and you know, all the buzz is like, hey, is 34 going to get another hat trick? And it's just, that's what the thought process is. And you know, Hayes, you and I scooted. I made really good time. Like I flew
down there.
There was no traffic. I was in my seat with like 11 minutes left in the first period. Like, it was crazy. I was like flying to make it down there, found a spot. It was great.
Yep.
And you know, just looking at it, I was like, okay, what's going on here? There seems like there's not a lot of shots on goal. There wasn't really much going on. Talking to people, they're like, yeah, it's been kind of a dead start. I'm like,
yeah,
man.
It was not a good start. And as people are pointing out on Twitter as the game went on, that was the first game I've been to live this year, and they lost again. And remember what happened during the playoffs last year. Like, I honestly can't recall the last time I was in a building when they won. It's got to be 8 or 9 games in a row.
And I don't know how I got to be honest. I don't know how you did it last year with the Leafs, because I felt gross after that one. I'm like, I can't come back for a while. Mm-hmm. And you just kept on going back.
Well, it was the playoffs. You know, like I wanted to be in the building. I was doing Sports Center stuff after the game.
I know. Yours was more like a work obligation.
I got to be down there.
I get it, but I was like, I'm not going to take the chance of someone coming up to me saying, every time you hear they stink the joint out and they lose. I don't want that on my conscience.
It is true. I mean,
I don't want it.
Cooler. Me and Hedge. Between Hedge and the Jays, me and the Leafs, there's something really wrong. Anyway, we got Mike Johnson coming up just after 5 o'clock. Marcellus Wiley, who was at the game last night. I wonder if he was like the other fan that was going crazy for the Chargers last night. If you missed it, we'll update you on that story. And the Cowboys got to win, and the Cowboys got to cover. And there it is. Timo and Wilson, the miracle run has finally come to an end. More on that still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We've got Mike Johnson coming up in about a half an hour. Marcellus Wiley, who was at that Chargers-Cowboys game last night. Dallas and Dak, full redemption after an embarrassment last week. Dak played well last night. You know, it's basically you don't turn the ball over, and Dak and the Cowboys can have a chance of winning. He starts getting crazy with the ball, and they generally get blown out. But that Chargers team, that's what they do, man. They find a way to lose. They always do.
And company.
How was Jerry Hebert?
Well, he wasn't great. You know, he was running for his life. Their offensive line had no game plan against that Cowboys team.
Dude,
and
like they filtered through coaches there. I don't know what that operation's all about, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think they're close to anything. Anything good. Like,
I agree.
I really don't.
No, and like Herbert's a huge talent, and he still is a huge talent. But it's like, what else are they bringing to the table? They have weapons there. defensively, they spend more money on their defense than any team in football. They have a defensively minded head coach. Staley's, a defense first guy. That's his background. And yet they find a way to shoot themselves in the foot coming off a bye at home, and you lose that ball game last night. And there was a wild scene in the stands last night of that one fan. There was a this woman by the name of Mary Ann Dew is her name. They found her online. She was on the Pat McAfee show already. Like this is how wild social media is. She was so into that game, going crazy to the point where people were convinced, and there's been this big debate online, like, is she a paid actor or something? Like, how crazy of a reaction can you have for
like that
every
looks like
play?
Price is Right reaction, where it's like you just got called down to the Showcase Showdown.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then there you're losing the Showcase Showdown. I don't know. I've never – that's a fan that's into it.
Yes.
How the hell would Pat McAfee – maybe I should ask Doogie, and why didn't Doogie get on this? Mm-hmm. But how do they find her? Do they just say, what's her name? Well, because they didn't put her name up.
Somebody's tagging her, and you know how social media, somebody knows somebody, and they're like, yeah, that's my Aunt Francine. Mm-hmm. And so they that's what the producers do. They try. What about the guy in Hamilton with the 6 Bush Light or whatever? That we were able to track that. People like that were tracking that guy.
Do the math.
We found him. We found a number of people over time. And I think what happened here was, again, there were a number of fans cynical. And why would a team ever pay someone to react to play? I like the idea that the Chargers
it would never
are like,
happen.
we need to pay somebody.
They could put Marcellus Wiley in the seat.
And Marcellus was there, and he's a Charger super fan himself. He probably was, had a range of emotions himself last night. But I guess the reactions were so raw, so over the top, that it almost felt like an impossibility that this wasn't just pure emotion. To the point where, again, people were suggesting it was a paid actor. People were kind of going with my line of thinking that no one actually is a fan of the Chargers, so there's no way this person actually exists. Like, it'd be one thing if that was a Steeler fan or a Packer fan. Chargers don't have fans that really care about that team. Right. So I think there was some cynicism on that front. But I guess it got to the point where there was so much debate over it. She through the team, or the team through her, were like, we got to publicly announce this woman's name and who she is. She's a pharmacist in California. She goes to a ton of games, and she's a real fan. And now she's a meme. Like, that's going to be everywhere, right? The rest of the season, that's going to be everywhere. So Marcella's coming up in an hour on the fan reaction. I told you last night, that had to be 60%, maybe 70% Cowboy fans. Like, you guys saw videos, I'm sure. We were all at the hockey game. There were a ton of Cowboy fans there last night. A ton.
They travel well. They do. They travel well. Mm-hmm. But, they came up like I kept thinking to myself, okay, Cowboys win, but did Team Hayes come out on top of this?
Yes.
Like, was there a
yes.
And that was Owen Wilson's, like, this might be the TSN turning point? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's the downfall. I think it's a perfect downfall that it's the Cowboys, although we both got them wrong in the last 2 weeks. I bet the Cowboys to cover a week ago. They bet against the Cowboys to cover last night. So I guess in a way the Cowboys have been, both of our nemesis in the last.
My
7
original
or 8 days.
thought was Cowboys. I'm like, they've been trash talked ever since that loss, and they've got to respond, and they're going to respond. And I have a little side bet with my buddy, and I was like, Cowboys. And then I talked to my Pardsy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And my Pardsy was like, it's the toughest call I've ever had to make, but I'm taking the Chargers. And I'm like,
wow.
Okay. And I mean, I'm not going to tell the guy, you got to. If I said I'm overruling you, we're taking the Cowboys, he'd say, go to hell, I'm never doing this segment again.
Yeah, that's the beginning of the end, basically. But
yes.
You got to have some stones and step up. Like, if you really feel strongly about something, you have to at least suggest you have a feeling, as opposed to letting him just run right over you. I mean, that's got to be concerning.
You know what? Maybe I could have said that. I'm like, Are you sure about that? Because I just got a Cowboys feeling.
Right.
I know they're unpredictable. They always seem to lay an egg. They do stupid things. Their quarterback does stupid things, but I got a feeling about it, and I just didn't have the stones to do it.
That was a big win. Big response, and you're right. That's the NFL in a nutshell. You get blown out 1 week, you get embarrassed, you reset, and you generally come back and perform well. And credit to Dallas, they did that last night. So Marcellus Wiley, who was at the game last night, former Cowboy and former Charger, will join us in about an hour. Brad Lidge coming up in a couple of hours as well. And that Bryce Harper, man, I don't know how you continue to pitch to him. Like, I just don't know how you throw him something down. Treatment. He hit that ball so violently last night. That was his first pitch home run. And
that was top of the – that looked like a high pitch too, didn't it?
Well, yeah, that's down Broadway basically, man. I mean, I was 93 and yes, it was – I think it was supposed to be an elevated heater, I'm assuming. I mean, in retrospect, I'm sure most pitchers that give up home runs would say that was not the intended pitch.
I mean, who cares what it was or where it was? He is just taking everything yard.
He's sitting on it, and that's what's amazing is I would assume – the game plan there might have been, hey, he's going to be patient here. Let's throw him something, challenge him early. He turned on that ball, and he had one of the coldest celebrations. He turned 31 yesterday, and as he was, rounding the bases and getting towards home plate, he put a 3 and a 1 up, and I think was pretending to blow out candles.
Yeah, it was.
That's when you're feeling it, man. When you're blowing out fake candles in Game 1 of the NLCS, you're in a good place.
Hayes, we talked about the baseball last night a little bit, and it's like it's got to be the Phillies' time. When you get an opportunity like this, and no disrespect to my teammates in Carolina, but I'm pretty sure Detroit, they already won some cups, but they get Carolina in the finals, they got to be saying, we're kind of getting a little older now, fellas. Like, you got to get this one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Philly's got to be thinking that. Like, it's just like the old cliche where teams say, if I told you at the beginning of the year Arizona would be left, Texas and Houston would be left, like, you got to get one. You just got to do it. You're not like Dodgers, Braves, powerhouses. You got to get one.
Houston is, but they're not the same team. Right, like Houston has been the most dominant, consistent team in baseball for.
But they were no powerhouse this year.
They were not. They barely made it in. They had to sweep Arizona to get in. They backdoored their way in. Ended up winning the division basically because Seattle and Texas handed it to them, and now they're down 2-0. Right, going back to Texas for Game 3 with Scherzer on the mound. It sets up beautifully for Texas to get through, and that's exactly I think what you're saying. If you got Arizona in one round. And then you got Texas waiting for you. Philly's going to be a heavy favorite moving forward. Like, I'm sure they already are after one win. I'll bet you they are more of a favorite to win the World Series than Texas is. And Texas only needs 2 more wins to get to the World Series.
Yeah.
Philly needs 3 more. Should look that up, Doogie. Find that stat. We'll put Doogie to work, right? We're 37 minutes into the show. We haven't asked for much.
Though,
Day 2.
Haven't asked for much.
But he is resting on his laurels. I feel like... You know what? I feel like we brought him into the forefront yesterday, and, today might be a little cocky. Kind of might have to bring him down a little bit. Like
you think he said I introduced myself to the nation, I'm just going to, hide in a hole
Well,
for
he might just float it. I've guaranteed his buddies were texting him last night. Might have gone for a couple with his buddy. Who knows? You never know. He's a young kid. So who knows what they would do? Maybe Fortnite lit up. Who knows for him last night? But either way, he can't rest on his laurels. He's got to hammer down and dig in. Put him to work here.
Yeah, well, here we go. Here's your first request, Doogie. We need answers here, and we need them quick. Updated World Series odds here. Is Texas an odds-on favorite to win the World Series more so than the Phillies?
Can't be.
I don't think they should be, yet the math would tell you Texas, they're closer, right? They need 2 more wins to punch a ticket. Philly, if Arizona reacts tonight and comes out with a win, they're split going back to Arizona. But we'll see. Doogie, you got an answer? Just send me a text or get on the mic if you're in the studio.
Get on the mic.
Get on the mic, Doogie. Give us an update on give us the odds for winning the World Series as of this moment.
All right, boys. So the Texas Rangers are leading the way, plus 110.
Okay.
And the Philadelphia Phillies, plus 145. Those are the top 2. Astros at plus 700, and the Diamondbacks, plus 750. So
wow.
It's a tight race here.
Okay, so
Doogie.
Doogie with a quick update, courtesy of FanDuel. We love it. Doogie's on top of things. That is interesting. That again, the odds would suggest Texas probably should be shorter odds because they're a little bit closer. Yet, conversely, Arizona is a further dog than Houston is. Yet Houston's in the whole 0-2 going to Arizona or going to Texas. and yet Arizona has longer odds. They're only down 1, and they haven't played a home game in the series yet.
Oh, you love that.
Ultimate disrespect.
Another shot at Arizona. Any chance you get, it's just lean into Arizona. Hey?
No, you know what? I'm changing my tune. I had some conversations last night. I'm a big fan of the whole operation out there in Arizona.
No disrespect, Arizona.
Bruce Cassidy's on an island now. I love the state of Arizona, and all of their sporting teams they represent well. But I mean, you look at what Castellanos is doing. You look at what Bryce Harper's doing. Harper's got 4 home runs already in this playoffs. Castellanos, I think, he hit back. He's got 5 now? I think he's got 5. Like, they're setting records as teammates in terms of what they're doing. They're doing stuff that not even Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig were doing back in the 20s. That's how good they are and how productive they've been. So Phillies with a big one last night. I just assume Harper goes off again tonight. I think most people are probably bracing for that. Brad Lidge at 6:30. Confirm or deny still to come. Again, Johnny's coming up in about 20 minutes. The Oilers are back in action tonight. There's a lot of content that these Canadian teams are supplying, including some of the things we saw last night. So back into the Leaf game from last night, start teeing up their road trip as well, starting Thursday night down in Florida against the Panthers. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Mike Johnson coming up in about 20 minutes. Marcellus Wiley will join us at around 5:30. Johnny's taking the Leaf game last night. Marcellus on the Monday Nighter. He was there. Cowboys getting past the Chargers. We're through 6 weeks in the NFL. Flies by, man. Flying through the season. Always works out that way. We got some news in the NFL, too. Julio Jones signing with the Eagles. So one of the great wideouts of the last 20, 30 years, Julio Jones signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. So more on that with Marcellus in about 45 minutes. Mentioned the other Canadian content tonight in the NHL. The Oilers are in Nashville. Feels like a big game. Feels like a very big game after they started their season 0-2. And
you kind of got to get a good start in net. Don't you?
Yeah, and Soros, I'm assuming he's starting tonight. I haven't seen, but if Soros is starting, there's always the capability. He stands on his head, too, and you got to win 2-1, right, or 3-2.
He's that good, guys. He's that good. He's a perennial Vezina conversation goaltender. And ultimately, you can't have excuses. It's easy to go, hey, he didn't get a save. Well, they didn't outscore their issues the other night. They scored 3. Yeah, they gave up 4, and they only gave up 18 shots. Game 1, that wasn't goaltending. That was just out to lunch from top tier to bottom. They were out to lunch. So no excuses. Yes, you need a save.
The problem is, Noodles, just like the second game against Vancouver Saturday night, they came out humming. They got a goal in the first minute. It looked like, they're back on track. They're going to fight back. They're going to get revenge, and they're all ready to go and blah, blah, blah. But you can't go back the other way and then 2 tip-in goals, and then you're down 1. It's like it's everyone's responsibility to be ready to play. And when the Oilers answer the bell, and Hayes, if you do your bets today, you better do Draisaitl goal because that guy scores every night in Nashville.
It's in. It was sent in about 3 hours ago.
Oh, yeah?
It's in. Draisaitl scoring tonight. You get plus money on that, like plus 120.
Do we know if Jack Campbell's playing?
I have not seen an update. I'm assuming it's the great wizard act of
I
Jay
think
Woodcroft,
he is playing. I think he's playing.
Is it Jack Campbell? He just should come out like a wizard, right? Off the strip in Vegas, Jay Woodcroft. Who's under my hat? It's Jack Campbell tonight. Jack Campbell's starting.
Or have the 3 cups with Campbell hockey cards or Skinner hockey cards.
Right.
Which cup is this under the starting goalie?
Which one do you pull? And then you pull it. There's no one under there. We're going six skaters all night. 6 skaters for Jay and the crew.
Yeah.
I have not seen that confirmed, but I'm looking forward to that tonight. I'm really looking forward to Pierre-Luc Dubois back in Winnipeg because he returns. The Kings are in Winnipeg playing the Jets tonight.
That'll be greasy.
He is going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
And in pro sports, this is when you expect it. He knows it's coming. He said his parents will be, I guess, in attendance tonight.
I wouldn't have gone if I was his parents. Imagine your mom having to listen to, I
know, it's
drunk,
tough.
angry fans. I couldn't go. I would tell my parents, don't even think about coming to this one.
I was thinking about it. Is there somebody that takes a run at him, like somebody takes a swipe at him, like, Stanley on the back end, like somebody on that team.
I would try to knock him right on his ass. Like, we were probably buddies or whatever, but when you just said, screw you guys, I'm out of here, I can't wait to get out of here, and you forced your way out of here, and basically, I played in a small market my whole career, basically, and it's just, that would have pissed me off. Like, really pissed me off, and I would just try to knock his block off every time he touched the puck. I wasn't a fighter. I'm not going to fight the guy. But if I was on the ice and I caught that guy with his head down, I would try to just knock him right on his ass.
I thought about that, like the return and maybe some animosity. Two players or two situations I thought of, and I was calling the game on Sunday night. It was Tampa, Ottawa, and I laid eyes on that Eric Chernak, and I thought the first time that guy plays Carolina, he'll be chasing that Michael Bunting around the whole night. Mm-hmm. Don't you think?
Historically, that would be a situation where Bunting it would be in his best interest to just drop the gloves and say, let's go.
He's not going to, though. He doesn't fight.
I don't think he has to worry about Chernak. He has to worry about 84.
Is that Jeannot?
Yeah. Like, that's who
Jeannot's
Bunting
just
has
so
to worry
much
about.
out of his weight class. Not that Chernak isn't either. Chernak's a big, big guy.
But I laid eyes on that kid, and I was, hearing stories out of Tampa how he was like really messed up the whole playoffs, and really struggling with that concussion. Like, that's one where you circle and you like, I don't care. Next time I see you, we're going to have an issue type of thing. And I thought of the same thing. Pierre-Luc Dubois, you'll see, the friends, he might have had dinner with a couple of the guys last night, but I don't know. I think today.
I don't know about that one, man. Yeah, that's a flush. Hey, what's up tonight? Who dis? Who dis?
Yeah, see, I'm always curious how that works because I've heard it both ways in sports where, half the time it's like, hey, it's your career. We get it. All good. You got paid. You're not the first. Like when Jacob Trouba came back to us, anyone tapping on his laces saying, I want to have a piece of you?
No, but I think there's ways of going about it where it just has a different vibe to it. I don't know. Don't you think, Hayes, that when Trouba exited, it was a little bit different? He tossed in the wife, American. She has to work, and it was just a little bit smoother.
It was.
This one seemed greasy, man.
The other one too is.
But at the core of it, quickly, Trouba wanted out. Is the point?
He did.
Just like Dubois wanted out.
They got to the same place. They got there differently, but they got to the same place of wanting out.
Trouba put his time in, though. That's a difference. From the second that Dubois was there, you heard he said not signing, might look for it, hoping to get traded to Montreal at the draft. Like, there was all sorts of noise around it, whereas Trouba is like, yeah, you know what? At some point, I'm going to have to exit here. My wife is American. I'm American. I think she's a doctor or something. Like, there was a lot of different factors there. He put his time in where I think from the minute Dubois arrived, he was like, I'm not staying here long term.
I think you're right, and I think that's accurate. I just don't know if the players care about that as well. I mean, you guys would know. You were in those spots. So you mentioned it. You were in that situation a lot in your career in Carolina and Hartford. Now, the difference is Trouba was drafted. He couldn't go anywhere. He had to play for a certain amount of time.
Right.
Dubois got traded there. Right, he got flipped, and when he got there, he played. I thought he played pretty well as a Winnipeg Jet for the most part.
I guess it depends on what teammates of his took it personally, because some teams, like I played with a guy, Kevin Dineen, who was Mr. Hartford Whaler, and I think if somebody came to Hartford and they didn't want to stay there, I think he took that kind of personally because he was like, I love this place, and he was Mr. Hartford Whaler. And I think he would take that personally. So who in Winnipeg would take it personally? Because you're basically living with the guy. You're with him every day. And if somebody was buddies with him, I guess your friendship's not going to get torn all apart about it. But if Mark Scheifele is really a diehard Winnipeg Jet guy, maybe he can't stand that this guy forced his way out because that hurts him win.
Yeah,
and he'll just be like, screw you. Yeah. And he could be one guy that takes a run at him and says, screw you.
Well, the other thing is we should go back to Rick Bowness's comments. They were very, very pointed at our top players, or there were some of our top players, or who was that pointed at?
If and it's Noodles, just recently he said last year we had 2 players with 1 foot out the door. meaning him and Wheeler.
Well, that's right. They're too lighter this year, right?
Yeah. No, he said we had 2 players on our team that had 1 foot out the door the whole year, and you knew they didn't want to be here. And I was like, well, it's not hard to figure out who that was because they're both gone. Wheeler's in New York, and Dubois in L.A. It's going to be it'll be a fun night.
I think
I've been trying to think about what game I'm going to focus in on for the Canadian teams. I want to sniff around Van and Philly, but I'll be going right to the peg for that one.
Yeah. That's the game of the night, I think. Because, Winnipeg's a good team. LA's a good team. Dubois coming back. Like you said, Nuno's almost from the second he arrived, it wasn't going to be a fit.
It was noisy.
He didn't want to be there. He wasn't going to stay, and he did not end up staying.
Yeah.
He got his way, though.
Why did he just not play it out in Columbus and then go pick wherever the hell he wanted? Like, what's the sense of saying I need out of one place just to go to another that you're going to need out of there too?
That's the thing is about contracts in the NHL and the way it's set up with the CBA. You're going to be where you're drafted for 7 years, basically at a minimum. That's basically the way it works. And I guess he was trying to fast forward time. He couldn't, but now he's a happy guy. He's making $8.5 million a year living in LA, so he got what he wanted. Mike Johnson, Marcellus Wiley still to come. Brad Lidge on Game 2 of the NLCS tonight. His take on the Rangers beating up on Houston through 2 games as well, and confirm it tonight just after 6 o'clock. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.